Ever wonder what happens when old school grit meets new school greed? This is the story of Gus Moreno, a 72-year-old blacksmith, and his fight for the soul of his land. For 40 years, Gus's blacksmith and fabrication shop was the heart of the neighborhood, the ring of his hammer-on. Steel was its anthem. His shop, a simple cinder block box, sat on land he'd bought outright in 1975, long before the area was rebranded as the shiny new tech park, Silicon Mesa. Now, his forge was the last holdout in a sea of reflective glass buildings. The trouble arrived in a sleek black sedan. Mr. Elias Vance, the acquisitions director for the newly formed Mesa 2.0 Revitalization Board, stepped out with an offer Gus couldn't refuse, or so he thought. Vance didn't want the shop. He wanted the air rights and the tax revenue from a 20-story luxury apartment tower they planned to build right there. Mr. Moreno, Vance began, his voice smooth and automated. Your operation is non-compliant with the new noise and air quality overlay zone. We're prepared to offer you a fair buyout. Gus, leaning on a sledgehammer, wasn't impressed. That old trip hammer is protected. He growled. Registered historical equipment. The noise ordinance has an industrial heritage exemption. Vance smiled, a cold, calculated expression. That exemption is contingent on continuous public-facing educational operation. Your sign says private. The board believes you've let that lapse. Gus pointed a calloused finger toward his shop. I teach to apprentices every Saturday. That's public enough for me. Vance's smile never wavered. You'll be receiving a notice of abatement if the noise isn't below 65 decibels by month end. We'll move to seize the property under eminent domain. Think about the buyout, Gus. The next morning, an official notice was taped to his forge. It wasn't from the city, but from the Mesa 2.0 SID, threatening fines and seizure. Gus felt the hot surge of anger, but he knew how to control a fire. He called his daughter, Clara, a city planner who fought for zoning equity. Dad, these CIDs are quasi-governmental. They love making up their own laws, she said, but they're bound by their own charter. Clara went digging, deep in the city archives. She found the original Mesa 1.0 revitalization charter from the 1980s, the one everyone thought had been overwritten. And there it was, Section 9, Subsection D, the Industrial Core Legacy Clause. It permanently protected the original industrial properties, including Gus's shop, from any new noise or environmental zoning, unless 2/3 of the original property deed holders agreed. The original holders? Gus asked. They're all gone, Dad, Clara explained, replaced by corporations and LLCs. But the clause is still active because the SID never got the required vote. They just assumed it was dead. The noise ordinance they're using against you is illegal on your land. Gus knew a legal fight wasn't enough. He needed to make a statement. In a shed, he had the ornate, interlocking steel gates his grandfather had built for the original shop back in 1928. He began to restore them, the ring of his hammer louder than ever. He reinstalled the massive gates at the edge of his property and mounted a brass plaque. The Industrial Core Legacy Parcel. Entrance governed by Mesa 1.0 charter. He also set up a sound recorder aimed right at the road. The CID's response was swift and petty. A construction crew appeared and installed a 10-foot-tall, sound-dampening fence blocking his shop from view. It was an unofficial, spiteful move to make his business look derelict. Gus just smiled and waited. Then, with his plasma cutter, he sliced a clean rectangle out of the new fence. On the opening, he bolted a sign, SID barrier and lawful encroachment. The next day, Vance returned, flanked by security. Mr. Moreno, you have violated a temporary safety enclosure order, he snapped, pointing at the sliced fence. This is vandalism. Gus walked to his restored gate and pointed to a faint, old concrete line. Mr. Vance, your fence is 11 inches inside my surveyed property line. The only vandal here is the one who ordered the trespass. He then handed Vance a document. It wasn't a map. It was a lawsuit for criminal trespass and destruction of property, citing the Industrial Core Legacy Clause and demanding the fence be removed. The legal battle was on. Clara and Gus's lawyer, a tough old bird who specialized in municipal codes, used the CID's own charter against them. The legacy clause was their anchor, but the illegal fence was the proof of their overreach. The judge saw right through the CID's scheme. He swiftly ruled in Gus's favor, ordering the fence to be torn down. But the real victory came during the discovery phase. Clara's lawyer uncovered internal emails. They proved Vance and the board knew about the legacy clause all along. They had gambled that Gus would just take the money and disappear. They bet on bureaucracy, but Gus bet on his rights and a paper trail. The fallout was public and brutal. The local paper ran a series of articles. The CID was forced to pay Gus a 7-figure settlement, issue a formal public apology, and rescind the restrictive noise ordinance for the entire area. Gus didn't retire. He used the money to modernize his shop-s exhaust system and put up a proper new sign. Gus Moreno S. Blacksmith EST. 1975. He kept the old brass plaque on the gate, polished until it shone like gold. A few months later, the very same developers who tried to push him out came to his shop hat in hand. They needed custom steel railings for their new apartment tower. Gus just smiled, and soon the heavy, rhythmic thud of his ancient trip hammer echoed across Silicon Mesa once more. The sound of honest work, reclaiming its rightful place. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story of justice and determination, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. See you next time.